Anthony Atamanuik is a great comedian who probably made the funniest impression of President Donald Trump we've yet to see. His impressions are incredibly funny, and we certainly have a lot to learn from his techniques. Being the funny guy in a room has great benefits. We know that the funny guy is always invited to gatherings and parties, and we know that funny people increase group productivity and happiness at work. Now back to Anthony. Whether you support Mr. Trump or not, there is something about Anthony's style of humor that makes everyone laugh. In the field of comedy, we all know the effectiveness of self-deprecating humor that everyone preaches about. It's simple, and as long as you do it right, you can come off as very funny. We see Rowan Atkinson do it on his shows as Mr. Bean. We also see Conan cracking these kinds of jokes.
This is a replica of my home. That's funny to you?
They look so funny because they make the person delivering the joke a subject of ridicule. And as we know, ridicule is a useful device in many kinds of humor. However, we also know that too much of self-deprecating humor can make you appear a little unconfident of yourself. Anthony does not make himself the subject of ridicule in his style of humor. Sure, he does strange actions with his hands and lips that makes him look like a circus clown, but people are not laughing at him as a person. So who gets made fun of when he is doing his impressions? We know that someone or something must bear the brunt of ridicule in a good humor piece. Could it be someone next to him? Could it be someone in the audience that is listening to his comedy skits?
I mean, she looks like Medusa. She looks like Medusa, and I don't want to turn to stone, so we're going to put a feedback on her. You look like a fetal part. I mean, you look like a fetal part. Everyone in this audience has had at least one abortion. I know that's the guy. Legally. I don't want to. We're going to build a space wall. Unbelievable. Last night, but George Bush and Jeb were behind 9/11. We know that, right? They were behind 9/11. Jeb planted little bombs on every floor. And yeah, it's true. And of course, they blew up the shuttle. They love killing teachers on the shuttle, NASA. And I'll tell you this, kids at home, if you don't like your teacher, submit them anonymously to the shuttle.
In that video clip, you saw Anthony Trump attacking everyone in the room, an interviewer, several high-profile figures, and two large groups of people. And if you watch this video closely, no one in the room felt like they've been made the subject of a ridicule. In fact, no one is disturbed by the fact that they've just laughed loudly at the brutal comments Anthony Trump made about those people. You can even replace everyone in the audience with the most sensitive people in the world, and they will still laugh at Anthony's impression. They don't feel guilty about it because Anthony is not mocking those people. He's making fun of someone that is neither in the room with him nor anyone he mentions in his jokes. And that person is President Donald Trump himself. Mr. Trump has spent his 2016 presidential campaign making bold and outlandish statements. Now, whether you believe his statements to be righteous or not righteous, the truth is many people in the big cities are skewed towards the Democrats and hence are less likely to support Trump. And these people were the majority in that room. Most of them believed that Mr. Trump's statements were not righteous. They felt that he attacked individuals and several groups of people for things they believe were for no good reason. Hence they felt that Trump deserves to be made fun of due to these comments. And some of you might ask, wait, if Anthony Trump makes anti-Trump people laugh, what about Mr. Trump supporters? Shouldn't they get angry at Anthony's ridicule of their favorite presidential candidate? And honestly, my answer is still no. I believe that Anthony Trump can still be funny even if he is doing an impression in a room of Trump supporters. And I believe so because Anthony Trump is simultaneously a caricature of Trump. A caricature is an exaggeration of someone or something that is done for comedic effect. Exaggerations are funny because they are unexpected. They take people by surprise, and oftentimes we react to these surprises by laughing. So you now know that Anthony's caricature is effective at not only delivering humor to large groups of people of differing opinions, he is also avoiding the risk of offending an audience member through deprecation, or coming off as unconfident as he self-deprecates. So how can we craft the perfect caricature? First, we must choose a target for caricature, who may be a celebrity or a person that is well known amongst your audience, and make sure that the person that you're making fun of is not in the room when you are doing the impression. If Mr. Trump himself was in the same room as Anthony, when he is doing his impression, it will no longer be a form of caricature that is seen with Anthony's Trump. Mr. Trump would feel the ridicule by that impression, and Anthony's comments that, for example,
George Bush and Jeb were behind 9/11. We know that, right?
would come off to Trump as mocking his ability to perceive between truth and fiction. Second, know how well your audience perceives the person that you are making an impression of, whether they like him or her. If that person is not well received, you can increase the ridicule like how Anthony does Mr. Trump. But if the person is well liked by your audience, it may be a wise thing to scale back the ridicule and focus mainly on the exaggeration for comedic effect. Third, be aware of what the person you are mocking represents. It may be a philosophy, a political agenda, or a religious perspective. And if your audience are strongly supportive of them, avoid mocking these representations. This is so that you do not accidentally offend anyone in your audience. Of course, the safest way to do these impressions is to avoid the controversial and sensitive topics, but do not let caution reduce the content of your comedy. Instead, it is better to research about your audience by interviewing them and asking questions before you make the skit. So to summarize, Anthony Atamanuik uses caricatures to deliver great comedy skits. His caricatures uses ridicule and exaggeration as devices. In order to deliver a great piece of comedy in his style, you must first, make sure the person caricatured is not amongst the audience. Second, tune the amount of ridicule based on how much your audience likes the caricatured person. Third, be aware of what the person you are mocking represents and stay away from anything that may offend your audience. Of course, if you are able to pull off something as brave as Anthony did without offending anyone in your audience, you will certainly have done a major feat of exaggeration and being funny.
I'm a monster! Hey, you listen to me. You are a gorgeous orange bull, and don't you ever forget that.
If you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel now by clicking on the subscribe button. In that way, you are more likely to see our videos on your homepage. The purpose of these videos is to help grow your prestige in corporate and social situations by increasing productivity, confidence, and humor, just to name a few.